Welcome back to Tokyo on Fire. The lower house just the other day, passed the budget for 2017. This is the first piece of legislation to come out of committee, and now it is going into the upper house. So if you're counting marks for the Abe administration, this is one up. I'm joined once again by Michael Cucek. This seems to be going in process. They submitted the bill. It's in the upper house now. They've got 30 days to consider it. April 1st is the beginning of the fiscal year.
They managed to get past the scandals that were going to eat up the time in the House of Reps Budget Committee. That Mr. Amari stepped aside very quickly so as to clear the path so that they made it just barely.
Item number one of business, they must pass the budget.
They have to pass the budget. It has to be in place 30 days before April 1st. Bingo, they hit March 1st. They did a stand-up vote in the House committee, and then they went to the full plenary session. Bingo, it's done. Mm-hmm. Another successful spring for the Abe administration.
Okay. It will sit in the upper house for 30 days, but whether they debate it, and there's a lot of things that are going on, you can expect the opposition to be attacking the administration, but within 30 days, it will pass the upper house as well.
Well, it's not going to. The upper house can just sit on it and do nothing. Doesn't matter. According to the Constitution, once the House of Reps passes it, it's done. Now, what that means is most likely Mr. Abe is going to be wasting his time for most of March, sitting in the House of Councilors in Budget Committee there, where the opposition will ask about everything except the budget.
Right.
Because there's no actual limit, or there's no rule requiring them to discuss the legislation itself.
Right, but the whole cabinet needs to be in session so that the opposition can talk about the budget.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the whole purpose.
The budget committee is allowed to consider any aspect of legislation because anything could have a connection to the budget, and that's why we have discussions of scandals and sexual peccadillos.
Right.
In the Budget Committee, which makes it's not in the Ethics Committee, it's not in the places where you think it would happen. It's all in budget. Well, the House of Councilors knows it doesn't. It's really it has no function in this particular piece of legislation. So it's probably the House is going to probably waste time. That being said, there are all kinds of pieces of legislation still in the House of Reps that need to be handled, and that's going to be something that we're going to have to look at.
Right.
Now, in terms of the budget, it's the biggest one ever. It is got a larger amount of revenues paying for it, not so much in the way of bond issuance, and it's got a big kick up in terms of defense spending.
Right. Let's talk about some of the places that it seems the administration is putting some of their eggs. They're going into tourism big time now, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're going to social services, as they must, with the aging and declining population.
And they're focused on getting more women in the workforce, yeah. Mm-hmm. So
defense has gone up a couple of ticks?
And that's basically because Mr. Abe has this proactive peace. We're not militaristic, we're in proactive peace. But that requires people, that requires funding, and that requires a lot of material. And that has to be paid for. So defense has been one of the winners in this particular budget sequence. Now, with more revenues coming in, because everything's done in nominal rather than in real terms, with more revenues coming in, the government has been able to do a little more fiscal maneuvering than it normally would have done so in the past. So everything's going well in terms of that. Nevertheless, the looming possibility that there's going to be a rise in the consumption tax from 8% to 10% has started, even though the budget is still in process, they're already talking about a supplemental
budget, that's right.
And it's absurd in a certain sense. It's stealing from Peter to pay Paul. They're going to increase the taxes on consumption, but they're going to increase spending, but through the supplemental budget in exactly the same amount.
Right.
So that the overall spending remains the same. Mm-hmm. Which, when you think about it, you say, really?
Right. Well, it is also very curious that from the outside, it looks like Japan is in real trouble because of their debt load and the amount of spending that is required, and the revenue that's coming in with the declining population, the shrinking workforce. But in light of that, the budget allows for 30,000 yen to be distributed to aged people who have retired and
who are lower income.
Lower income.
So you're basically spending $300 US a month, and the opposition has said you're just buying votes.
Right, and they're actually enhancing that in the discussions that I've heard with the supplemental budget, that they need to distribute more money to other people, they need to build more kindergartens, they need to reward people for having babies, and that sort of thing.
They're going to be doing that, and that's probably going to be in the supplemental budget because this budget season is passed. Mm-hmm. Finally, the bureaucrats in the budget section of the finance ministry can go home, where they've probably been sleeping at the ministry for the past few weeks, because they have to compile the new briefing materials for the next day's session, and they've had to do that since January. Finally, they're going to be going home, and we're going to settle down into what was supposed to be the TPP part of the session. Mm-hmm. But as we know, we had strife there, and we don't know what else is going to be now the marquee legislative package that Mr. Abe is going to try to bring into the House of Councilors.
Okay, well, let's chalk one up for the Prime Minister.
Yeah, he and his party deserve credit. They made the deadline, they made it cleanly, and even with big roadblocks in the way.
Okay, so what can we anticipate now? We've got that behind us. We're moving into a new zone, probably for the next, today is March 3rd, so we've got just, a couple of weeks left before the fiscal year ends, and we move into yet another zone. There's a lot of fireworks that I think you can anticipate, not only coming out of the upper house, but probably in the lower house as well.
Well, for example, let's take the controversy that's currently burning like a firestorm around Minister of Internal Affairs and Communications, Takaichi Sanae. She was asked by a DPJ member in Budget Committee session, the broadcast law, Article 4, it gives you the right to suspend the broadcast license of a broadcaster, radio or television, that is not presenting balanced and fair political reporting. Would you ever use that power? And she said, well, I haven't done it. I don't anticipate doing it, but I cannot speculate about and I cannot definitely say I will never do it.
Mm-hmm. A fair comment.
A fair comment, but it has brought her nothing but grief from the nation's broadcasters and the nation's news media, who see this statement, even though it's just a restatement of the law,
right,
as being a way of trying to intimidate the news media, who have some issues.
They do have some issues.
They have the Special Designated Secrets Act, the increase of penalties on reporters there.
Well, not only that, but just the removal of several prominent newscasters over the last couple of weeks.
Which may have been be a coincidence, or may be due, we don't know, to Mr. Abe's very, very skillful golf and dinners and all kinds of outings with all kinds of top media executives, so that there is a break between management and the reporting side, and the reporters can't look behind them and expect the management to be behind them and supportive. So right now, media is very sensitive to all even hinted threats at their ability to do their function, which is under the Constitution, the press is free.
Right.
So she's dealing with that, and Mr. Abe, of course, having appointed her, it all reflects back on him. So while there really isn't any controversy, there is still a lot of fireworks going on.
Not the biggest bill that has to pass through the Diet, but probably one of the most prominent. The budget for 2017 passed the lower house. It is in the upper house for deliberations over the next 28 days now. And in between now and April 1st, you can anticipate, and we will be reporting on, machinations that are going on in the Diet. Please stay tuned.